All right, welcome back. This is the Unnamed CyberSecurity Podcast. Bob, Carl, Matt.
Yeah, everyone's in their usual locations today too.
Yeah. Well, I am. I'm at home because I don't want to deal with traffic right now because construction here is stupid. But
It's stupid everywhere.
Yeah. Matt has a cup he wants to show us.
Oh, we're showing my cup.
Yeah.
It's a QR code. I kind of hope you can't scan.
So when you're talking to a bunch of people who deal with IT or cybersecurity, please don't scan that. Although it's funny, it's not Matt's OnlyFans. That's all we have to say about that.
It's also a lesson to you. You should not scan a QR code.
Yeah.
What it's gonna be.
Well, which is funny because last week at the show, I had a QR code for people to scan so they could get we were sending a document to them, like an actual little mini risk assessment they could do. And it was funny because everybody walked up to me like, should I really scan this? I'm like, probably not, but yes, please scan it. Because you can also win an Amazon gift card. So it turns out if you want people to scan a QR code, just offer them an Amazon gift card and they'll scan anything. Carl, we can't hear you, Carl. You're muted.
There you go. When you go to cybersecurity summits, all the vendors are out there offering you free gift cards for scanning their QR codes for the security product. So
I'm gonna buy a shirt with a QR code, but I can't say what I would actually have the website say when you go to it. So let's give everybody, if you didn't catch us last week, right? We talked a little bit about this CISA 2023 risk and vulnerability assessment results report that they kind of pushed out. And they were talking about MITRE framework, which is attack framework that shows adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. So basically it's how hackers hack, right? What techniques they use, what tips, what procedures, things, or tactics, techniques, and procedures that they use. So we went through initial access, execution, persistence, and privilege escalation last week. If you need more information on that, go back and watch last week. Because we're going to move on today. And we're going to go to defense evasion. So, how many of you have evaded defenses before? So if you saw a fence, did you jump it? Did you climb on top of a building you weren't supposed to climb on top of?
We don't want to talk about what happened when I tried to climb a fence as a kid.
Okay. Is the statute of limitations expired now?
Yeah, but I still got the scars.
Okay. That's not good either. So that's funny. I may have ended up on top of buildings before following friends that were not quite sober, and can't believe I didn't get arrested for it, but I was trying to have them not fall off said building. So that's a story that you can ask me another day. But in this case, a hacker is in your network. They're on a computer. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to evade the defenses that you have. That could be antivirus. Mm-hmm. It could be maybe they're somehow in a sandbox. Maybe they're just trying to do like there's some guardrails, like maybe like app whitelisting and things like that that's trying to stop them from doing what they want to do. Right? We talked about this last week, but if you look at this chart, 13.9% is still valid accounts. Their defense evasion technique is just using an account. And this has kind of been an overarching thing over what we talked about last week and then this week. That's just having valid credentials gets you around so much. It's crazy that that's still something that's so easy. Another thing I like about this too is control panel items. So they just have access to control panel.
Chris, can you explain that to the lay people who don't have control panels, what that means?
Who don't have control panel?
Or may not understand it. And they may have them, or they may have somebody running them for them and don't even know that's in their organization. What is a control
I think control panel items is just Windows control panel. Okay. So it's just basically if you've been using Windows for a period of time, Microsoft's trying to kill control panel. They're trying to get rid of it and move everything to settings. But control panel's been around forever. But yeah, it's just items inside a control panel. Maybe they can leverage them to do something they shouldn't be able to do, or maybe they disable user access control somehow. Maybe they have privilege to do that, so just turn off user access control. That'd be something you could do in a control panel. You can do that other ways too, but the point here is they're trying to evade defenses. So let's say you've spent a bunch of money on this really fancy endpoint detection response. Somebody told you need EDR and you bought it, or you have some fancy new antivirus, right? They're trying to avoid that. One of the popular techniques that they're using right now is it's called BYOVD. And no, it does not stand for, the VD does not stand for what you think, Matt. It's bring your own vulnerable driver. I know what you're thinking. What?
A mouse or a keyboard.
So there was this list of drivers in Windows that were vulnerable to attacks and what they would be used for. So like a printer driver, it could be a printer driver, it could be a driver for like a graphics card. Basically, a driver tells the computer how to interact with that hardware. If it's vulnerable, it can be used for privilege escalation and some of the other techniques that we talked about. That's a really popular one. But if you get to that point, that fancy endpoint detection response, that antivirus that you have, it's really easy to disable when you have a BYOVD. So if they can bring a vulnerable driver to the table and use it, it's really easy to kill EDR and kill antivirus and make it so it doesn't work. And once that's dead, they can pretty much do whatever they want. So
that's always been the biggest problem with drivers because the trust level has to be so high between the computer and, just like you said, Matt, a keyboard or something like that. And when that gets compromised, it's kind of game over.
Yeah, especially if it's kernel driver, right? Because then you have kernel access, which is kernel access.
We discussed that a couple months ago for a certain company. But
rhymes with CrowdStrike. Anyway, if you get to the kernel, you can think of it as the brains of the operating system, or maybe the heart, or however you want to determine that. If you can get to that, you can access pretty much whatever you want. So that's what they're really going to do. That's like a technique that they can bring to the table where they can kind of get around things. So if we want to move on, let's move on to the next one, because this is kind of important. And we're going to go to credential access. So when you log into a computer, a lot of times those credentials are cached on that computer, meaning so maybe you need to take your computer offline and you still need to be able to log in. Well, if the credentials weren't cached, you wouldn't be able to log in. Now, if it's a local login, it's a little different, but let's say you're on a network in a traditional business environment. Those credentials are cached, which also means administrative credentials can be cached as well. If they have full access to, so if they have the full access to the machine, they can dump credentials. They can use other tools. Like one of the things you'll see here is NTDS UDL. That's getting way technical, but let's just put it this way. If you log into a computer and it has cached credentials, there's a tool out there on almost every operating system that can take those credentials and dump them and give them access to credentials. So if I'm just a normal person, a normal standard user, and I don't have admin rights, but there's admin rights that have been cached to that machine, they might be able to use some of the other techniques that they've used before to get to a level where they can steal those credentials. And now they can just log into other computers, or they can log in and do other things. So again,
it's like having the Post-it note underneath the keyboard.
Yeah, basically a little harder to access, but still same principle. Yeah.
We bit.
Especially if they do get to Active Directory, which would be like the brains of like your entire network. I mean, if they could dump credentials from that, like think about what they could dump: the CEO, the CFO's credentials. What else could they get access to? Your backups, just all your data in general. So
everything.
Yeah. So credentials are incredibly important. Yeah, exactly. So obviously one of the things that they talk about is being able to detect these unsuccessful login attempts, because sometimes it might just be brute forcing, which that's on that list, right? Let's see here. Forced authentication, 8.95%.
Yep.
Right. So not a high percentage of it.
Brute force is separate. 5.77.
Oh, 5.77. Yeah. Yep. So that's a small percentage, but if that's something you should be able to easily detect. And obviously when somebody quits, and this is probably the one I see the most, and I don't know if you guys back me up on this, people don't delete users. It's wild.
They don't even disable them. They don't know, might not notify
True.
us. I got a call a week later and said, "Oh, our admin's gone." Oh, really? Our office admin, not our system admin.
okay.
Have you seen some of those ones where like there was old IT people that were at these companies and they basically hacked back in by basically just logging back in and then causing chaos? Like it's kind of crazy. So, okay. Left the door open, lights on, dinner right there. Just like, come on in. Invite him back in, right?
Out of the freezer.
Well, there you go, right? TV's on.
I mean, the statistics of an attack being also an insider threat.
Hmm?
I mean, it's like 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5, where somebody's either been paid off or been the mastermind of the attack.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can get credential access, like if somebody can just load something and give you credential access, you can skip a lot of other steps, right? So
and it could be a subcontractor or a vendor on your network.
True. What if you gave them too much privilege? Yep. Right? Yep. So again, these percentages are cut. Like this gets kind of technical when you look at like LLMNR poisoning. That's too technical to get into, but 15% of the attacks were that. So they were just trying to poison something on the network so that it would get somebody to expose the credentials. And it doesn't trick the user, it tricks the operating system. So again, they're trying to get credentials. That's the whole point of this, is they're trying to get credentials. There's things that we can do to detect it. Logging is very important. If you're logging properly and you're running that through some sort of analytics, you should be able to detect when a lot of these accounts are being used when they shouldn't be, right? Or being brute forced or stuff like that. Again, and it's also important, just a simple tip, it's free. Disable and delete user accounts that don't need to be there anymore.
Yep.
And take a look, Chris, take a look at 12.55%. Credentials in files. How many people are storing? How many people
Passwords.txt. Passwords.txt. Let's go.
Passwords.txt.
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet if it's an accountant.
I talked to somebody 2 weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we store them in the recipe folder." Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess it is an ingredient to being pwned. Pwned? Is that
don't
what
do
go
that.
with?
Just don't do that.
Yeah, she decided that was. She agreed that wasn't a good practice.
I'm sorry, Bob.
No, I just was saying she agreed that that wasn't necessarily a great practice of hers.
Personally, my favorite password storage.
A nice password manager now, or something to assist with the pain.
I use Pastebin for mine, so.
I like the recipes. You just take one user, add a dash of password, and then
you end up
just
with
warm
an
it up
entire
to
bowl hacked.
Yeah, got a whole hack.
All right, let's go on to next one. Yep.
How do we find these, Chris?
Discovery. Oh, this is a good one. What's funny about Discovery is this is exactly what we're trying to do when we first meet you.
Yep.
We're doing, I mean, in a good way, right? Like we're trying to figure out like where are you at, like cyber maturity wise, and like when we do a risk assessment or we do something else, like, and when I say we, I mean all four of us and collectively in the industry, people have always done discoveries, right? They could do technical ones where they're just trying to see like, you know, how many computers do you have? What firewall do you use? What backups are you doing? Stuff like that. We're looking a little bit more towards risk. But they're doing the same thing, right? They're trying to see, okay, I got access to the computer. What else can I see? Right? What other systems can I see? What networks can I see? What firmware does this computer have? What open ports are there that I can maybe leverage for certain things? So this is interesting because, I mean, what's the biggest one here? That's not other account discovery. Okay, right. Password. I like the password policy discovery. They're just trying to see what the password policy is. So if they know that you don't have a password policy in your network, they automatically can assume that people are using really shitty passwords that are probably really short.
Or they're saving them on saving them on the browsers like Chrome and Edge.
Yeah.
And they think they're secure and they're not.
Yeah, so it's a really good technique to use. Like they can just look at the policy, which is kind of funny actually. Network share discovery, again, they're trying to see what network shares do you have, what do you have access to. So if they've got access to a machine, what can you see? Depends on obviously who the person is, but maybe they can see everything they need to see. Domain trust discovery, that's probably more important in like a big company. But the idea here is network segmentation is so big. Like if you have a bunch of networks, let's say you have a printer and you have some cameras. Those can easily be put on a network that isn't where your computers are. You can still access them from the network where the computers are, but they can't access your computer network. Your servers could be on a different network. So maybe you're limiting what can actually access your servers. Maybe you're putting other restraints in there that only certain things can access it. So network segmentation is really important. Log collection is going to be huge here because a lot of these discovery tools can be, they fit a pattern and you can kind of detect them that they're happening, and it kind of sets an alarm off that says, hey, this is kind of weird. Maybe we should check this out.
So Chris, you're talking about log detection here. Okay, so I got logs. What do I do with? What should people be doing with them? And how it's taking the log files and shoving them over in a Word doc somewhere isn't going to be useful.
No, I mean you gotta run them through. Like we use SIM. Yep. You don't have to necessarily use SIM. Sometimes you can use just like a managed detection response company, and they'll pull small logs. They may not store them for long, but they'll pull them just to kind of get like the telemetry, so just kind of see what's going on. So if they see certain things happening on a machine, like maybe some of these are just, let's say there's some tools, a collection of tools that are built into Windows that people start using in a particular order, that can look like an attack. So what it can do is flag them and say, hey, look, maybe this machine should be looked at because this looks like somebody's actually trying to do like discovery on a network.
But one thing everybody needs to understand out there is the fact that throwing them into a log analysis tool can find trends. It can also, like if it sees the same if the log the analyzer sees the same thing on multiple machines happening over the course of a day, well, maybe there's something going on that needs to be investigated versus seeing it one off. It's like, oh, okay, it just happened. Maybe
sharing and accounting shouldn't be trying to scan the network to figure out where things are.
That too.
20 times an hour.
Yeah. Why is somebody running an IP scanner from the quality machine in the back of our manufacturing firm? It's a good question to ask.
You mean that machine sitting in the corner that no one knows what it does?
And Chris, going back to your network segmentation, I mean, when you think about the CDK attack, where everybody, all these car dealerships got shut down, and the big reason was everybody was basically on a big wide network where there was. So when the bad guys got in, they were able to hit 15,000 car dealerships because there was no segmentation throughout that whole network. Perfect storm.
I don't have much to add to that. That's why they cut cords, right? That's why a lot of the bigger dealers cut cords with CDK right when it happened. Yeah. Unfortunately.
It's a shame.
And let's go on to the last one for today. So now that you've discovered everything in the network, so maybe you have credentials, maybe you've avoided the defenses, and now you've discovered a lot of stuff in the network. Now what are you trying to do? Now comes the fun part. Now you're trying to move lateral. And what does that mean? You're just trying to hop between machines. As simple as it can be. You're trying to maybe get to servers from a desktop. You're trying to get to admin shares. You're trying to remote desktop into things. Maybe you're trying to pass a hash. Okay, so the top two ones are pass a hash and pass the ticket. Pass a hash is going to be trying to pass a password hash. Pass a ticket is going to be a Kerberos ticket. So it's kind of it's an authentication ticket, but it's a little more specific than just a blank password. And that can be done from a number of things. So kind of a technical thing, but those are going to be, I mean, what is that? 44, almost 44%, 43.79%. That's a pretty big, substantial number. And then RDP on top of that, now you're well over 50%. So,
and people are still running RDP. It's crazy. We use some of those public scanning tools, Shodan or other things, and you still see hundreds of thousands of these machines sitting out there.
Well, in this case, though, it's internal too. This is internal more. Yes, you're right. You're right. Like you're just begging for it to put RDP on the internet, but like this is internal. A lot of admins use RDP to bounce between machines.
True, but there's other ways, more secure ways they can be doing it. If they don't, really don't need it, why don't we just, use another tool?
Yeah. So
for those of you who don't know what RDP stands for, that's Remote Desktop Protocol.
Yep. Basically, you open it up, you log in, and you see the screen on something else, whether it's a server, whether it's another desktop. So this is kind of where their fun begins, because they've already discovered what's on the network and they're trying to get to the things that they need to get to. This could be your Active Directory server if they're trying to get to, they want to maybe get to domain admin, so they have full control of everything. This could be your backup server. This could be your shares, so they can just exfiltrate data. Because if they can get to all that, maybe they can't. Well, I think it's all that they can hit you with ransomware, but maybe they're just trying to steal data from you. That's just their whole point. Yep. So again, log collection is huge on this. Again, we go back to it. Like when people are passing the hash or passing the ticket or remoting in, the stuff needs to be logged. If it looks suspicious, especially when you start getting into like end user behavior awareness or I can't think today, user behavior analysis. If you can look at that, like you can notice when people are doing things. Like again, if the accountant is already peeing into a server, that's suspicious. Unless it's something that maybe he's hosting like an application for, but him or her, but it might look suspicious for that situation. So this is stuff that we need to look at in a network. Obviously, have unique credentials. They talk about phishing resistant multi-factor authentication. Yeah, great. It's good to have, but if they're this deep in, having logging network segmentation is going to be probably a bigger thing, just so you can kind of try to see what that behavior looks like.
Cool.
Yeah, they're just trying to get to where your crown jewels are, honestly. And we'll stop there this week. Next week, we're going to cover 3 more things. It's going to be collection, command and control, and exfiltration. Those are the fun ones. Because, well, I mean, lateral movement's fun, I guess, at that point, but like command and control and exfiltration is going to be kind of interesting.
That's
where we talk through that.
Something's happening. Like what was all this work for at that point?
Yeah, this is so far we've only got to where they're basically just trying to. They got access to your network by initial access. They're trying to execute things. They're trying to get privileges they need, discover what's on your network, move laterally so they can try to get to the things. And then next week's going to be all about, okay, now what happens? So now they've already got you. So now what are they going to try to do? Mm-hmm. So, any parting shots that you want to take at me for this week, or parting words? I just thought parting shots sound funny.
I'll save the shots for next week.
I'll save you never punch down. That's my rule.
Oh, I like that
already.
You better bring the fire.
That was such a New York insult. Like back
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we almost look like we go to the same barber, except I just shaved my head. So
Chris, I accept your punches up. That's all.
Yeah. So I think if you have any questions, obviously let us know. If we need to clarify things, it's hard on some of this stuff because it is technical, and I'm trying to get too technical on this. But it's just to kind of illustrate from a high level, like what somebody's trying to do inside your network. This can be used for cloud too. I use a network because it's a little bit more relevant for normal stuff. But hey, let's say you have a cloud application. Almost all these same things apply. It's just that some of the techniques are going to be different. Some of the tactics are going to be different. But the overarching idea is still the same.
And if you leave your door unlocked, you will get intruders. In my case, they're just asking for snacks, though, so it's not as bad.
Oh, kids are home.
And I do have a question for Chris.
Yeah.
What's a barber?
I don't go to barber, shave my own head. No.
I don't even know what that is.
2020, man. Pandemic made me just buy. I'm like, why am I paying $12 to have somebody shave my head when I can just do it for myself?
That's what I said when it was $5, so I get it.
Yeah, fair point. All right.
I don't remember Chris ever with hair, so.
Yeah, I've been shaving like this for a while. Drop a follow, comment, let us know what you think. If you like this kind of content, again, let us know, and we'll cover the last 3 next week.
Yeah, I think next week I'm working on AI to get us a song for the group.
Oh.
Intro.
Don't let me use AI for a song. It's not going to end well for any of us.
That's why we're not letting you touch the AI.
There you go. So, all right. Have a good week, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.